Welcome to the March edition of the Cinetopia Radio Show and Podcast. I'm Amanda, your host, and on this month's show, we focus on some of our most cherished Scottish film festivals. Starting with this year's coverage of the Glasgow Film Festival. Show regulars Simon, Garry, and Robert give us their take on their experience at the festival this year, including reviews of Nocturnal, Peacock, Homegrown, and Stealing Pulp Fiction. We also review new release films currently out in cinemas, including Mickey 17, On Falling, and The Last Showgirl. I also talked to Alison Strauss, founder and festival director of HipFest, Scotland's first and only festival of silent film with live music, which is happening right now from the 19th to the 23rd of March. All on this show, so stay tuned. Cinetopia has some exciting events coming up. First, Cinetopia Doc is taking the Sundance documentary Kim's Video on a tour across the UK. So Kim's Video was a iconic New York City video rental store with more than 55,000 beloved rare movies, and the film is the quixotic quest to track down the whereabouts of this massive video collection. Next up on the tour is London at the Garden Cinema on the 25th of March, and then on the 10th of April we'll be at Glasgow Film Theatre and Dundee Contemporary Arts on the 25th of April. As mentioned, there's about 20 different venues, so you should check out our Kim's Video tour page on our website to find all the locations. The film is popping up across the UK. Next, our monthly industry networking is happening again in Edinburgh on the 2nd of April. We'll be at one of our favorite local places, Home Bar, from 7 to 10 p.m. If you've not been to one of our networking events before, this is an informal get-together of industry professionals to meet each other in a very informal environment and catch up. Everyone is welcome, so we hope to see you there. Finally, if you haven't signed up for our Substack, Cinetopia Recommends, you're really missing out. This is where we share weekly not only our activity across the country, but a deep dive into all that's going on film event-wise across Edinburgh, Glasgow, and beyond. If you want to get a weekly update in your email box, check out how to subscribe on our website at cinetopia.co.uk. And if you want to submit a film event or a film opportunity you have, please fill out our submission form as well, and we'll share it with our Substack community. I'm here with three regulars, Mary, Simon, and Robert, who all were at the Glasgow Film Festival this year, and we're going to cover a lot of films that were part of the Glasgow Film Festival, as well as review three new release films, one which was part of the Glasgow Film Festival as well. But I'd love to ask you guys how you've been it's been a very busy film month, and I'm looking forward to hearing your impressions of this year's festival. So let's start with you, Robert. How are you?
I am, well, being very busy, lots of stuff to do. Everything decided to come out in March. Well, for what I mainly cover, everything came out in a very short period of time, so there was very much a lot of writing. Hopefully get a break soon. That would be very nice.
Great. And you enjoy the film festival or the films that you saw from the Glasgow Film Festival?
Glasgow was fine for me. I loved Baby Assassin's Nice Days and the Ghost Killer. They were both incredible movies for me, but everything else apart from that was really hit or miss for me. Especially some films that I thought I would like didn't turn out to really enjoy that much. It was okay. I think there's been stronger years, but I think Baby Assassins and Ghost Killer really made it up. I think if they weren't there, I wouldn't have enjoyed this festival as much.
Okay. Well, mixed reviews already, but I'm going to go to Simon. Simon, you've done our Cinetopia Glasgow Film Festival special for many years. So
yes,
how do you rate this year's Glasgow Film Festival for you?
Yeah, good. I really liked this year. I thought it was a really strong year compared to last year, and I think the year before was very good as well. But I really thought it was a very strong year. Lots of really good films. Every public screening I went to seemed to have interesting Q&As and red carpet talent behind it. So it's fun to hear a bit from the makers of the films. And there were good events as well, good event screenings. I didn't manage to go to them, but I heard from my partner and friends who went to them that they were really good and put on a really interesting event. I really liked it. I think my favourite film this year was The Surfer. with Nicolas Cage. Really liked it. The screening I was in, the audience seemed to love it.
Yeah. Well, it is home of Cage-O-Rama, which and the whole
Mhm.
Cage Film Festival. So I think maybe there's some bunch of people who appreciate Nick Cage a lot. I do from that film festival, actually. But yeah, I didn't see it, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about all of the films as we continue to, as we'll review a few of the films specifically that were part of the festival. And Gary, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's good. I had a good time. I didn't cover it as extensively as I have done in previous years. I think I was through like on both Saturdays, and then I watched a couple of screeners. But yeah, it seemed like quite a star-studded affair this time with like cool like in conversation events. James McAvoy was in town, and there was like I missed the opening movie, which looked really good. Tornado with Tim Roth and Jack Lowden. So there were some big things that I wanted to see that I didn't get to, but from what I saw, it was a pretty high standard, like Glasgow usually is. My favourite of the festival was this like strange ghost story of sorts called Went Up the Hill, directed by Samuel van Grinsven, and I didn't really expect. About 10 minutes in, I was thinking, I'm not going to like this at all, but it really won me over. So that was my surprise hit of the festival.
All right. So when we come back, we're going to start with some of the new release films that are currently out in cinemas, starting with Mickey 17. And then we'll come back to the Glasgow Film Festival right after that.
On Earth, nothing was working out, and I wanted to get the hell out of there.
You're applying to be an expendable? You read through the paperwork.
Yeah. I should have read through it.
That's it. Mickey, deep breaths, fill your lungs. Imagine there's an unknown virus in the air,
and you're sucking in every single microscopic particle floating around.
All the viruses.
So good.
There really was an unknown virus in the air. Lethal one.
See you tomorrow.
Fellow pioneers, almost every single one of you will be remembered throughout history.
They made me work my ass off, giving me one shitty mission after another.
You're an expendable. You're here to be expended.
Every time I died, they just printed me out again. Everyone asked, what's it feel like to die?
Okay, so the first big film out right now, I caught at Berlinale, but it's out in cinemas pretty much anywhere in the UK right now, Mickey 17. Simon, why should we get excited about this film, or what's this film about?
Yeah, so Mickey 17 is the new film from Bong Joon-ho, and it's his first film since he won the Academy Award for Parasite in 2019, his first English language film since Okja. And it's an adaptation of a novel called Mickey 7, I think. It's a science fiction film that follows Robert Pattinson playing Mickey 17. Mickey Barnes went on this space colonization mission as an expendable, which means that he has agreed for himself to be cloned when he dies, and they have these human printers that will print him out every time he dies, and his consciousness will be transferred to the new clone. The kind of crux of the film starts when one of his clones fails to die, and the film goes from there and explores how the people on the colonization mission react to this and how he reacts to this unexpected circumstance. So it's a bit closer to kind of, like I said, Snowpiercer and Okja than Parasite, or than his earlier work, Bong's earlier work like Memories of Murder, and it's got a quite odd sensibility that takes some of the more wacky aspects of Snowpiercer and really runs with them.
And a big budget, too, from what I hear. Was it Warner Brothers? Kind of a full, big, fat check. Really big actors. And, yeah, he was able to go wild. And how do you both think that went?
For me, it's not entirely successful. I think there are a lot of concepts in this film that he has explored elsewhere better, and more succinctly. I also think there's a dash of Duncan Jones' Moon in there as well, which explored this kind of human cloning in space a lot better and in a shorter film. There's really zero subtext to the film. It bashes you over the head with its kind of fascism metaphor. Mark Ruffalo plays this kind of mix between Trump and Elon Musk, and it really beats you over the head with that metaphor of this cult leader fascist who is leading this space colonization mission in a very unsubtle way, which is a real shame because Parasite was very good at that kind of subtle satire. So I found it far too long. There was far too much explanation of stuff that didn't need to be explained. It starts with an extended flashback to how Mickey gets to this point, which I thought could have been a lot shorter. And it just generally didn't work for me. There's some good performances. Robert Pattinson is good in a kind of multiple role as these various clones. Mark Ruffalo is fun. And Anna Maria Bartolome, who was in The Happening, is very good. It's good to see her on screen again.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the whole package didn't quite work.
How do you feel, Robert?
I had a great time with Mickey 17. I thought it was really, I think Bong Joon-ho's a really interesting filmmaker because his South Korean work is a lot more subtle than his English ones. His English ones are very blunt in terms of their messaging, whether it was in Snowpiercer or I haven't seen Okja, but from what I know, people say it's even from the trailers, it's very obvious about its anti-meat and other aspects. But I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions. I don't know if that's because of language stuff or anything like that, or just how he approaches, his South Korean projects versus his Western ones. Maybe, he wants to be a bit more blunt. I don't really know, but I found that, especially the bluntness, I think that it leads to, because I think it plays into the humor of the movie, how blunt it is. There's a amazing scene about calories and the repopulation that I found to be really funny, because we see how, if you view him as a Trump-like figure, how Trump rambles on about stuff, whether it be on social media or in speeches, and it's basically the exact same. The performances are great. It was weird seeing Tim Key in this movie, and when he just randomly appeared, I was like, oh, okay. Especially because I you're the guy from Taskmaster. That's the only thing I know him from. So you're in season 1 of Taskmaster. But yeah, I think that it's a lot of things to say. My least favorite aspects of the movie is it can be a bit long, and yet the explaining the whole multiples thing, we get it. We don't need the whole. And I found that Stephen Young's character to be a bit. I don't really know why he was trying to go with that character. Maybe it's to do with the idea that he's a lower class citizen trying to ascend to higher classes, but he didn't really do much for me in terms of what Mickey is as a character about the expendable meat, the meat grinder sort of mentality, how the rich view the lower classes, and I think that's good on its own. That I didn't really know what Stephen Young was there. Maybe it's something that I'll pick up more on a rewatch, but I still had a great time with it.
Yeah. I would also say that too. I kind of accidentally saw it on my birthday, and it was a fun time, and it was a bit long, but it was. The only thing I say is somebody said this about another film that we'll talk about later, but I saw that trailer about 3 or 4 times in the cinema, and I really felt like it gave a lot away in terms of the film, and I think that I didn't get much more other than a fun time with that storyline, like you said, expendable sort of thing. I do think that Mark Ruffalo was fun. I think there was a bit of just this wackiness of sci-fi meets, I don't know, Lanthimos. It was wild. It was commercials. It seems like it could be a commercial success. I don't know if it is a commercial success, but it seems like it could be, because it's got all this sort of funness and humor, but it's also a little bit more interesting than just something boring like a Marvel movie or something. Sorry, that's my personal opinion. But I also really like the worms. You don't even talk about the worms, but I just love. I loved them better than the Dune worms.
Yeah, the worms are clearly also somewhat inspired by Okja, as they have a very similar kind of shape and temperament. Yeah, my friend who I saw it with said the same as you two. He had a great time. He thought it was great fun. He said he didn't mind the kind of lack of subtlety because he felt like, when you're facing up against authoritarianism and a figure like Trump, you need to be quite blunt about it, which I appreciate and I can understand. I think I just prefer Bong's South Korean work. I think I just prefer his...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I prefer his other sensibility, like you mentioned, Robert. I think I just prefer those films to the Snowpiercers and the Okjas and the Mickey 17s of his career.
Yeah, because there's always that video that goes around on social media about like the line in the cinematography in Parasite. There's always that line that shows the class divide and there's all that sort of thing. Because like at a basis, you could just view Parasite as not quite a home invasion movie, but like kind of home, like they're breaking into this home with it, and it's silly comedy, and it's like, but like it's not really about that. Beyond that, like, it's the same with like Memories of Murder or Memoirs or Memories or Memoirs. I always forget. Memories of Murder, because I forgot about this because it takes place during South Korea's dictatorship, and I think it's the 70s, and he tackles like authoritarianism and those things, but they're a lot more subtle, and I don't know if that, like, I just don't know why he becomes really unsubtle when he directs American movies. I don't know if that, I don't want to be mean to Americans, but I don't know if that's how he kind of views them. He views that South Korean can understand more subtle stuff compared to Americans, where you need to be a bit more, this is what I'm going for.
It might be his producer is telling him to do that too, but one would also imagine someone at that caliber to have free reign in terms of what they make.
Yeah, and whether it's a success or not, I don't think it is. It's coming out and streaming very soon, or digital soon. It's really sad. I think that, I think the traditional movie system, like Warner Bros. And stuff, is, I don't think dying, but it is dying with the short windows. They're not letting films breathe in cinemas. They're not letting people go to movies. Because people will just go, why would I, especially if, I'm not going to say like you're a family of four, but let's say that you are 2 people. Why are you going to spend £30 to go to the cinema when you can wait and it comes on digital $15? It's like you get basically, it's not 2 for the price of 1 essentially, and you can then watch it as many times as you want. And then it's like, I think that he would have got the budget without Warner Brothers, which is a good thing. Good that they gave him the money. I don't always subscribe to the idea that just because it bombs, it doesn't, like, people are like, it's a bomb, therefore it's a bad movie. We need sometimes movies that are like weird and experimental, don't do well, but you think that, I don't say if it was lower budget, but like even like other distributor, Neon had it, which is the distributor for Parasite in America. It might have done a bit better because I think they would have maybe marketed it a bit better. I can't really remember the trailers, but I don't know if we've all seen it, but we've all seen the trailers for like the most recent ads where they're doing the whole the Mickey songs, like, oh Mickey, you're so fine. It's like, that's not the tone of the movie though. Like, it is silly, but like it's not. It's more like silly in the absurdity rather than being like it's a hee-haw comedy. If that, like, it's not like, it's more, oh my god, Mark Ruffalo's saying this, like, rather than he's like saying something funny. Like, I don't really have to describe it, but you know what I mean. Like, I think the humor comes from the sickening intent.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I didn't like this film as much as you two, but I still think it deserves to be seen in a cinema. It is a big film by a big director, and it deserves its theatrical release in a way that I think Warner Brothers are denying it. And I'm going to point the finger at Warner Brothers specifically, who have been behind a lot of the bad practices in cinema that we've seen over the past few years. Disrespecting Clint Eastwood's last film, Joe number 2, not giving it a wide release, not advertising it, not doing any marketing push, sidelining completely projects like Batgirl and the Looney Tunes one, Coyote versus Acme. Yeah, they're just, they don't seem interested in the business of making and distributing films anymore, and it's a real shame. I think this deserves better. Even if it wasn't entirely to my tastes, I can see a lot of people are enjoying it a lot, and it deserves a bigger window than being thrown on digital in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I hear about this controversy that Warner Brothers didn't like the film and wanted to re-edit it, or is that another? I don't know about.
No, I
I'd be surprised because he had clashes with Harvey Weinstein over Snowpiercer. Like, there's that infamous story about how Have we all seen Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he guts the fish, and then he's like, I want you to cut that. And he goes like, no, my father was a fishmonger, and it really means a lot to me. And that was a complete lie, because Harvey Weinstein just didn't understand, like, me. So I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers were like, dude, like, make this, like, and I think you can see it, because, like, I don't know how involved he is in the marketing, but, like, I don't think the movie markets the movie correctly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good test of what you're saying about how marketing matters so much. And I think we can talk about, we talked about the Barbie Oppenheimer thing and how much money went into certain things and how that worked and didn't work. But in this case, that what you're saying, Simon and Robert, is true. They need to give a chance for this to have a cinematic release and really properly prop it up the way, if they've spent that much money to make this film, and we're all saying it's a pretty good time. And some people won't know. When you see the trailer, I think you don't necessarily know, that's the director from, I mean, you will if you know his work, but, you know, if you don't know it, then that actually seems like a quite commercially, what I was trying to say is the trailer seems quite a commercially fun film that you don't have to know. My dad, who saw it with me, the trailer, didn't know that was, doesn't know who Bong Joon-ho is, you know? So anyway, it's a shame, but it's still out in cinemas and we do think you should go see it, or some of us do. And so it's Mickey 17. So check it out if you can.
Hello there.
Hi.
Right. So it is an interview, but it's just a chance for us to get to know you a bit.
My name is Aurora. I work in a warehouse as a picker. You know that already? I'm sorry.
What did you do for the weekend?
Had to do a couple of things at home.
Boring. What is it with your generation? I'm 65 and I'm out and about getting at that, getting at the baby.
I just do the usual, I guess.
Hey.
Hi. And you?
I'm quite a busy guy. I do the laundry. Exciting stuff. You do that too? Wow. What a coincidence.
When you're not at work, what sort of things do you like to do?
Aurora.
You heard about the guy
No.
with the ponytail?
Do you know what happened?
No. I don't know what's going on.
The next film we're going to review is a film that was part of the Glasgow Film Festival, but it hit a lot of film festivals last year. I think it was in Toronto. It was definitely in San Sebastian. It won an award at San Sebastian, and yeah, it hit a lot of film festivals. It made a huge splash in terms of the film festival circuit. It's called Unfalling, and it is by director Laura Carrera, who is a Edinburgh-based filmmaker and actually graduated from ECA, so University of Edinburgh, and has been working on this film for quite some time. Also worked with Ken Loach's production company to make this film. And it is a story about a woman who works in and they don't ever mention, but I think we can because we're critiquing the film, but what seems to be an Amazon warehouse. And they're not allowed to say that because I was on the Q&A with them and they can't say that. But it looks very much like one would be working as a picker at an Amazon warehouse. We follow the main character, Aurora, during her work, but also during her time off of work. She's been driven to work by she's originally from Portugal, but she lives in Edinburgh, and she's driven to work with another Portuguese friend and colleague, but also kind of lives in a shared flat. So there's people from all over who have come to Edinburgh who share this flat with her. And we really see the struggle of her life, and with this kind of work, she doesn't have a huge connection to, well, for one, from having moved from Portugal, she doesn't really necessarily have a huge network. She also doesn't have that much money to spend. And I think it's a lot about the struggle of this work and the way it is to be a migrant in a country like the UK, and how lonely it can be. And I think there's a lot of nuance to this film that we'll talk about a little bit more. But that's the gist of the film, and I would love to hear what you guys think about the film.
Yeah, I thought it was really well made. Like it's very like it's made along with a production team, like you said, Ken Loach's 16 films. It's interesting timing of this film because he's just kind of announced that he's finishing up his final film was last year. So this kind of feels a new era or the torch has been passed for social realist cinema in Britain, and these stories of, well, I guess like Loach's films tend to be the working class people of Britain, whereas this gives it a kind of fresh perspective, looking at it from the immigrant experience, and it's also written and directed by women, so it's kind of like a bit of a different lens to it. It's in the same realm as particularly his Loach's kind of recent films, particularly one called Sorry We Missed You, which was about, it was kind of like a scathing portrait of the gig economy, about this delivery driver who's struggling to make ends meet. So there's similarities to that in this with, obviously, you say it's kind of Amazon-esque, pretty much Amazon, but can't say Amazon. Yeah, I thought it did a really good job of showing that kind of grind. Obviously, we're in a cost of living crisis, and it kind of shows that grind that everyone's trying to get by, some better than others, and there's like this kind of cinema verite feel to it with all the natural performers around her. I don't know how many trained actors there were in the film, really. I think like obviously the lead is a established actor, but she kind of like comes across a lot of these guys who, for being in Edinburgh, a lot of Glaswegian extra actors, a lot of Glaswegian accents for Edinburgh, which I thought was interesting. But I think it does a lot of good stuff around like doom scrolling on your phone, which is a big problem for, like, I'm guilty of that as a lot of people are, and it kind of, there's some interesting stuff on that where she again, I'm not going to get too much into the details, but she sacrifices something to like get her phone back, because it's like her kind of escape from this world is like scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be. And yeah, I thought it was a well-made film, very well acted, and yeah, what did you think of it, Robert?
I thought at times it was absolutely soul destroying. Especially with my own personal job, a lot it's not exactly, I don't work at a factory and stuff like that. I work at a call center, and that is all very much timed, and everything they looked at is like, you haven't done enough calls this month, you must average this many a month, for like, why did this call take this long? And when that device that she scans starts beeping, it gave me anxiety. I was, no, I don't want to be here. And even though it has that immigrant experience, I think it can be really relatable to people who not necessarily are in that kind of job, and about how these kind of jobs kind of like that are very stat driven, or like do things quickly, can be soul crushing. And we see that she doesn't really have, and that does tie into the her experience, where she doesn't really have a life outside the work. She's just on her phone or doing dishes, and I think a lot of people can relate to that in many different ways, because we get home and like, oh, I've now got to cook dinner, and then time you're like, well, I want to go to bed. So when like the older guy goes, oh, I'm going to go out basically on the bev, and he thinks it's a bit of banter, but it's like, it's someone who goes through that, you're like, that's just so condescending to be like, why don't you do this? It's like, yeah, because we're tired, our souls are crushed. And yeah, I think it's really kind of heartbreaking at times, and I also love the aspect ratio, especially when you go down the tight the shelves. It's just all shelving. It makes you feel like you're in there with her. It's really good. Some of the cool Scottish actors appear. I don't know her name, but she was in like River City and Garry Tank Commander. She shows up when she's at the chip shop. That was quite fun to see some other Scottish faces that you might see in other Scottish shows. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think this film I think some people prepared me to say this is going to be not a very, it's a grim story. So I was kind of walking in being like, oh, am I in the mood for something like this? And I actually was really blown away by this film and how much I really liked it. And I think there's a couple things about it that I really, really love, that while it falls within the Ken Loach and social realist sort of category and genre, makes this film very specifically, unique to me, and what works so well. For one, I think that leaves a lot of ambiguity and mystery to some of the story. So like we're watching her, and I think there are things that I questioned. I think in the same way, which is what the second part I would say, is that it was, as you said, it was soul crushing. As someone who has moved to a city and reinvented their life, but also had these kinds of jobs or just similar sort of work that you have to do over and over in New York, and had very challenging times, trying to survive. I felt this tension throughout the film. I felt this almost kind of not horror, but just dread, not knowing what was going to happen. And there were a couple scenes, and again, I won't give them all away, but there were certain things that she did that I was, oh no, is she going to lose her job? Is, as you mentioned with the phone, and there's just certain things where they keep you captivated, and you're very, very not attracted, but just Joanna Santos, the main character, is really gripping. So you're just following her life and her very sad life, but worried and also empathizing and feeling, sort of connecting with those feelings that you feel. And there's just also some absolutely tender moments as well, sweet and tender. But I also think the color, the way the film was shot, the way that the mood and the timing of the film, exquisite filmmaking, from somebody who I'm lucky to know, because she's been in and around the scene. And I think I heard something like someone say this, I think it was Jamie Dunn who said this is like as good as After Sun, and I think this is a better film than After Sun in some capacities. I loved After Sun, but I think this film really is a stunning piece of work, and it's kept me captivated, and I was very sad in many moments of the film as well.
Yeah, I think there's a real emotional gut punch in a job interview scene as well, where she kind of, what you said, Robert, about she's kind of got no sense of self outside of her work. So when she gets sequestered, again, without going into too much detail, it kind of builds to this scene, and you get this emotional gut punch. But I can relate to a degree, obviously not from the Edinburgh local, but my wife's an immigrant, and she started over to a degree in Edinburgh. And jobs I've had or jobs she's had, where it's, if she's not at her desk, I'll remember to move the mouse, because she wants to make it seem like she's doing something, because these big faceless corporations track every mouse move and every click, so that they can keep tabs on you. So it's horrible to see Aurora, who's the character, going through this, to the point where she's succeeding. It's grab a chocolate bar from the tub, and it's just so, it's crushing, and it's just horrible to see somebody going through that grind. I think it was interesting what you said, Robert, as well, about the way that it's shot and the aspect ratio of that kind of claustrophobic aspect of it, where there's no way out with these high ceilings in this big warehouse, but it's kind of like these looming shelves of just tap that she has to pick out for people shopping online. I thought it was really good.
The scene with her performance, so good. You can pick a chocolate bar. I laughed at that because it's just absurd. It's so stupid. It just shows how they don't care about their employees. There's there's a moment later on where it's like, congratulations for your hard work, you have cupcakes. And you're like, okay, it's the whole kind of the meme now of you on the work TikTok, the pizza party, it's get a bonus or a pizza party, it's a pizza party sort of thing. And to me, the most devastating moment, it's really subtle, is the makeup scene. I thought that was really gut-punching, that she looks herself in the mirror, and she looks beautiful, this blue, I don't know the actual term they make up, this blue penis. And then when she brings up a job interview, that's too much for a job interview though. Work still creeps in to even the most mundane of moments that are meant.
Yeah. Again, going back to this point of someone saying it's grim and sad, and where we are mentioning that, but then at the same time, that moment is so powerful, but also there are a lot of other moments of camaraderie with someone who is dealing with a very lonely existence, a really challenging existence. And like this, what I mean, like the sense of kind of dread where you're, oh no, what is this? What is going to happen? Is she going to get caught? Or is she going to get in trouble? Is she going to get fired? Is she going to get this job? You know, all these sort of things you were pushing for her. And with that makeup scene too, I feel there were a lot of people in the film, which is interesting because I heard her do a Q&A about the film, and the drafts over a period of time had changed, and there was more subtlety to the final drafts, where the original, maybe the roommates weren't as nice, but everyone isn't, you know, no one's I mean, apart from there's this one kid who seems to be a pretty bad person, and obviously the system is a really bad thing to be in, and I think that's the point. It's the system and the, you know, of this economy of these kinds of warehouses, but the people around are actually, you know, are trying to look out for her, or you know, it's with the interview, they're giving her a moment, and you feel that internally, the internal struggle of someone who has to deal with this. What was also one other thing was really interesting is there was an American in the screening that I was in, and there's a point where there's a, you know, a possibility of an ambulance. And the American's Q&A was, that's going to cost so much money, you know, she's not going to be able to afford that. And Laura was, well, we have the NHS here, but I've had a personal situation early on in my life when I lived in America, and there was a possibility of an ambulance, and I don't know if that's necessary. And this is this is interesting how other people will, from different parts of the world or whatever, could perceive even more fear of, what it is to live on that paycheck to paycheck, and what a small minor thing could do and have an impact on your daily life. You know, it's what it feels to be in that situation.
Yeah, it's funny you're touching upon the American thing with the health insurance. My wife got knocked off her bike years ago in Chicago, and she said that it's soul destroying, that the first thought that went through her head wasn't, have I broken my leg? It was, how much is this going to cost if I go to the ER for that? Yeah, I think what you say there about the people around her, they're not all like super helpful, but there is like moments of real tenderness between her and particularly the flatmate who's called Chris, who's played by Peter Sikora, who is like a smile for her at the end of the day, and he'll offer her a beer, and they'll sit and he'll invite her to have dinner with him. So I feel like he's a real kind of salt of the earth, sort of arm round companion that she needed when she's at it's kind of like her straits. But yeah, I did think that he did a really good job of that, showing that kind of so a sweet moment with him. Thought he was really good. I I'm not sure if he's how professional an actor he was, but I thought he was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard there's, I think about if I can recall, and I might have misheard this, but there were about half, Joana Santos is a very well-known Portuguese actor, very much, I think even in soap operas or something like that. And it's about to come out in Portugal as well. So there will be sort of a bit, and also there were a lot of people in the audience that were Portuguese who do live in Edinburgh, who said there were things that you would connect with, that if you were Portuguese, you would get more. It's just certain ways that things were being said. It's really fascinating to look at like how they've made the film, how they collaborated with the actors and the non-actors and everything. And it's worth reading into that and looking at some of the interviews that Laura talks about how it's been done. It was a long process in making this film. And also something that I think is really important to mention is that, from what she said, incredibly persistent in terms of getting out and saying, I'm going to make my first feature film. And it's not easy to do this. I mean, she was lucky to have certain funding, but it's not luck. It was complete persistence and getting the right people and getting the right funding and getting BFI to fund you with your first feature is almost unheard of. But it's got, I mean, I can't wait to see the next film that she makes. And I think we have a star on our hands in terms of, a filmmaker based in Edinburgh.
Yeah, definitely. I think all credit to her for the persistence of getting a film made. We hear all the time about directors that are moving to TV just because it's easier to get TV made, and even the independent British filmmakers, Ken Loach or Shane Meadows, or people that haven't made a feature film hadn't made a feature film in a while. Yeah, it's important that British independent cinema keeps getting made, whether it's from anywhere. I guess we're calling this British cinema because it's set in Britain, but by a Portuguese filmmaker. But yeah, I'm too impressed by the film and excited to see what she does next.
I did all that. Yeah, I think it's really, really good. It's, especially the first film is always, I don't know if this is always true, but the first one's always the hardest because she's made a name for, she'll make a name for herself with this whole, it'll be easier to get more funding for her next projects, and it's just nice to see a Scottish movie set in Scotland that is Scotland, other cities. It was funny because I don't know if, I watched on a screener, so I was, where is that? Where is that scene? You just want to Google, where is this? And, it's just, it was a really good movie. And I think to kind of wrap up my thoughts, there is, even though it's, to me, someone who kind of works on that side of things, is the grim stuff resonated with me a lot more, but there is hope throughout the film. Yeah. And I think that it has a hopeful message, and I think that I don't want to say that things can change, but I think there's a moment where that it will get better. There will be the time for you to do stuff. It's just, sometimes there's rough patches.
Yeah. I'm not sure it is hopeful in the political sense. Yeah, I think it's very depressing, but I do think the hope comes from, like I said, moments of camaraderie or tenderness or connection and help that, other humans ultimately help each other out. And so that I think it could have gone in a lot worse of a way. And
I would agree. The film was not.
For sure in New York City. Yeah. I feel like I've seen films about similar things that, end up a lot worse. So that was the sense of hope, I think, for sure. That economy and that work environment doesn't seem to be getting any better. And it's a horrible situation to be stuck in. And so that's On Falling. It's still out in cinemas. Please check it out if you can. We liked it a lot.
Places, please. Places, please. This is your place's call for the final performance of the Razzle Dazzle.
I mean, Las Vegas used to treat us like movie stars. The costumes, the sets. We were ambassadors for style and grace. The Las Vegas Showgirl. The iconic American showgirl.
You have an act prepared?
I do. I'm a dancer.
Music?
Yeah. I gave it to the maestro.
Okay, so the final new release film that we're going to talk about is also in cinemas right now. Actually, I think it was a Picture House release, which is interesting. So our home cameo. It's a drama film by Gia Coppola. So we know a lot of Coppolas, but this is a new Coppola. This is the granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola and the niece of Sofia Coppola. And the film stars Pamela Anderson, Jamie Lee Curtis, Billy Lord, a few people you would recognize for sure. And it's about a show that had been going on, the Razzle Dazzle in Las Vegas for decades and decades. And Shelley, who Pamela Anderson plays, was one of its big stars or its long-standing stars. And the show is going to close in 2 weeks, and the new people who have been in the show, as well as Shelley, are sort of now dealing with the end. And again, sort of like with On Falling, a grim situation on how to continue to live without sort of regular work. So there's this impending ending, and Shelley is kind of coming to terms. Shelley in her 50s and is coming to terms with her career. She also had a daughter named Hannah, who she shares with, who I believe is the stage manager of the show, which you only find out kind of in the middle. But yeah, she has a kind of a fractious relationship with Hannah, but they sort of also share some really tender moments. That is overall the film. But Garry, what did you think of this new? This is not the first film of Gia's. I think she made a film before, so this is maybe a second or third of Gia. But it's gotten a lot of notoriety or mention because Pamela Anderson's been nominated for a few awards as well.
Yeah. I don't know if this is maybe her. It's definitely at least her second film. There was a film called Palo Alto that she made with Emma Roberts about maybe 10 years ago or something. But I think I like the performance in this more than the film. I thought it kind of hinges on the casting of Pamela Anderson, who's fantastic in it. I guess obviously there's parallels with Pamela Anderson's career and with the career of Shelley, so it's very on point casting, where she's being, I guess, held aloft for her glamour, perhaps more than her talent. And that's the case again with Shelley, who's the last playing the leading role. In terms of the style of the film, I don't know how you felt about it. It does the indie thing where there's like the shaky cam and the camera is super close to each of the characters. It never really pulls back. And when it does pull back, there's like blurry spots, and it's I guess it's all stylized for a reason, but I couldn't really figure out. It sort of feels like Gia Coppola's experimenting with stuff and trying techniques. I'm not really sure why or what it was adding to the film. I think it became a little like frustrating. I just wanted her to zoom out so I could like see the frame. So yeah, it was like almost had the shakiness of a Safdie Brothers film or something at times, where it's got that grain. I do think like the score was really good, and I like the color palette, that kind of like powdery pink, and obviously it was the Las Vegas desert. Yeah. So I think like the cinematography, when you could actually see what was going on, was nice, but it's just you couldn't so zoomed in on people's faces for a lot of the time that it became a little like irritating to me anyway. I think there's a handful of really good performances in this. Not only Pamela Anderson, who is fantastic. I mentioned she was nominated for some awards. She missed out on an Oscar nomination eventually, but she had been nominated for a SAG, and she was in the conversation around the award season. Somebody who's also always in the conversation of award season is Jamie Lee Curtis, who I enjoyed in this, and that's not usually something. Usually she's an actor that I'm not usually that fond of. I feel like I don't know, she's not one of my faves, but in this, I thought the role works for her, and she kind of brings energy to the scenes that might not be in it when she's off screen. Yeah, and then the sort of the team that Pamela Anderson's character works with in the team, there's actors Brenda Song and Kieran Shipka, who people will recognise from various TV shows and they're like Disney stuff. Yeah, I thought they were really good, and it's got wrestler turned actor Dave Bautista in a interesting role as well. I think this continues his form of probably being the most successful and most interesting wrestler turned actor that there's been, I would say, in terms of like his filmography. He's done some amazing work, and he actually gets a chance to act, and he does some proper acting in this. Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, I think maybe the script, it's a little flimsy, but it's held aloft, I guess, by Pamela Anderson's performance.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you mostly on that. I mean, I'm a lover of American kitsch and nostalgia, of a dying, show on Las Vegas. I mean, part of me starting to think about, we saw this film that was kind of a faux documentary called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, which took people in a bar in Las Vegas. Technically, I don't think it was filmed in Las Vegas, but still the idea was that this was already going to grab me, just sort of the topic. And also I have a weird fascination now with Pamela Anderson, now that she's kind of coming back in this zeitgeist of going on the red carpet without makeup, but also her documentary and the Pam and Tommy situation with that Hulu show that, sort of kind of took advantage of, her story and shared it out to the world. But I agree with you. I mean, again, I'm not really a massive fan of the Coppolas. Not that I don't like Francis Ford Coppola, but I don't hold them in the highest, and I love to critique them. But if I was to be honest, I thought I felt a little bit more heart in Gia's than I see often with Sophia's, because I think of these performances, and I think you do have some empathy with them. And I find sometimes with Sophia's stuff, there's this boredom of privilege and whatnot in here, and this was the opposite. It's, struggling people working other gig work, but also trying to be an artist and sort of thinking about age, and very similar to like with The Substance, which we talked about, sort of coming to your terms of who you were and who you are now, and what that matter, and how to move on from that. And I think, as you mentioned, Jamie Lee Curtis plays that extra role beyond Shelley's character. So she's a little bit older, or has now retired, and and still has this vivaciousness of who she is as a character. So Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic. I love her, and again, if you look back at who you said, Pamela Anderson fits this role for who she was with Baywatch and this symbol that she was, and now, at her age now, and Jamie Lee Curtis kind of fits in there too, of someone we recognize as a face, and sort of so her acting in this was interesting, and fun as well. So overall, everybody did feel the story. You said, I think the performances work the best. The story is a little bit like not, it's not completely fine-tuned, and there were times where I kind of lost a bit of like an engagement with the film. Unlike Unfalling, where I think I was engaged throughout the film, I think I lost a little bit of engagement with the film. But I liked where it was going. And so I can't say that often for all Sofia Coppola films. So I might be more into what Gia's thinking about. But yeah, I mean, I also think it was it's quite beautiful. I didn't actually see the dance, the razzle dazzle until the end, and I think it was sort of celebrated in this heightened way, the way that it was filmed, the way the idea of a showgirl film would, or a showgirl show would be filmed, unlike even Elvis film, which I thought was just totally different. So it was a really soft way to film a story about this subject matter. It could have been filmed in so many different other sort of ways, and I liked that kind of soft, pastel-y blue and pink touch to it. So I would give, I didn't not like this film for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on it. I thought I was going to like it more, I think. I had recently watched an episode of Queer Eye where the Fab Five give a kind of life makeover to one of the Las Vegas showgirls. So you kind of get insight into that world, and she kind of gets to go back up on stage again and live out her youth. And so that was really sweet. So that kind of gave me, kind of runs in tandem, I guess, for the themes of this film. It's funny talking about the Coppola family. There's a little cameo in there as well from Jason Schwartzman.
Oh, absolutely. Good.
Quite enjoy. Yeah. It's like there's any Coppola movie, he'll get his little moment. It's just for one scene, but he's always enjoyable to see. So he's quite good in this kind of audition director.
You're right. I love a Jason Schwartzman cameo. Like, that's one of my favorite things in films and Coppola films. You're right. Like, but that was a stellar Jason Schwartzman cameo for sure. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Good call. Well, that's The Last Showgirl. And I think it's an intriguing film, and definitely give it a look if you're, for Pamela Anderson's performance. I mean, some people have actually not liked it. Some people have liked it. It's slightly divisive, I think, in terms of the critics. So it's worth looking into if you think this might be something you would enjoy. Yeah, you want to get in the conversation. So first film we're going to talk about as part of the Glasgow Film Festival, apart from Unfalling, is Nocturnal. Garry, do you want to talk a little bit about Nocturnal?
Yes. So, Nocturnal is a revenge crime movie. It's South Korean. It's directed by Jin Hwang Kim. It stars Kim Chan-hyun, who plays a kind of ex-con who returned. It's a classic kind of revenge story where he returns to town after some time away. He's been in prison, and he and his little brother's been getting up to no good, getting in with a bad crowd and into drugs, and so his big brother comes back and goes to avenge his death. And I feel like this film's been mismarketed a little bit because I don't know, but from the poster you see that this like gangster figure sort of feels like it's going to be this like bloody action film, and it's not really that. It kind of uses this one pivotal scene as not only is it the film's poster and the film's opening, but it's also the film's finale. So it all kind of like hinges around this like one big action scene. The rest of the film is this kind of like quite slow detective, almost like a detective film where the protagonist is kind of piecing things together and driving around Seoul to try and figure out what happened to his brother and why. I thought it was fine. It's kind of run-of-the-mill revenge stuff. It had some interesting ideas that felt a little bit underdeveloped. Yeah, I wasn't huge on it, but I think it was because I was going in expecting something different. And quite often at film festivals, you don't know what you're going to get. You've got a synopsis and one still to go on. Yeah, maybe it's on me that I was expecting something different. But yeah, Robert, what did you think of it?
This film is quite problematic, especially with its plot, in my opinion. So a big thing is that he believes that his brother's wife killed the brother, and that's the big thing he truly believes has happened. And it kind of delves into kind of like the background about why he thinks that, and it's basically because the brother abuses the wife, and it like quite badly abuses her. And then there's a line of dialogue where the guy goes, "But he didn't deserve this." Like, I'm like, yeah, he did. He absolutely deserved what happened to him, in my opinion. Like, he deserves it. But then, without going into spoilers, it reveals something at the end that it's like, oh, but this is actually what he meant. And you're like, what? Like, it's just really weird. It's such a weird direction to go in because it really makes it problem. It's just kind of gross. And the more interesting angle that we didn't really touch on is there's another character who I don't know, he's a novelist, and he was speaking to the wife character, and he decides to adapt her thoughts into a book that's called Nocturnal. And the big thing is, like, this is paralleling the events of the film, parallel what happens in the book, and that's why it also adds to the thing. But like, that's the more interesting side to the story, is this idea of this novel. But we're focusing on an unlikable brother ex-gangster character that is really dumb, is like really unaware, and it's just kind of like not a enjoyable film because I think it's just really gross, especially because it tries to paint the brother as innocent when he is very much not.
Yeah, there's nobody to root for really in the film. Like, the protagonist is not. Yeah, they're all bad people, and quite often, obviously, that is the case in these like gangster films. Yeah, I think by the end, I was like, oh, I didn't really care if he got revenge for his brother or not, because his brother was a horrible person.
Yeah, I think the issue is because it wants to have his cake and eat it too. It wants to be a classic revenge movie, so therefore it has like the satisfying moment of revenge, but it also wants to be about how they exploited this person's abuse, because that's essentially what's happened. He's exploited the abuse to get revenge on this poor woman, and how he exploits the novelist, but they don't really go into that. They just kind of go, yeah, she was abused. Like, and I think it's really gross, especially because this is a huge crux of the narrative. It's like, yeah, it's really bad. I didn't enjoy this. I thought this was going to be a me film, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. I thought it was just a kind of ugly movie at times.
And like, what I will say is, like, even the stuff that you think, oh well, maybe the fights will be well choreographed, or maybe it'll have like interesting music, like, it never really like hits the mark on anything. Everything's like relatively.
I thought the music very much clashed it. It felt like it was trying to go for like, we're going to compose this the opposite of what you think it would be, and it doesn't work It's really weird. Yeah, it's. I thought this was a big misfire in my opinion. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, but
I agree. Yeah, a bit of a dud.
Okay, so that's Nocturnal. Both not a go from either one of you, but we'll move on to other films that hopefully are more of go. Simon, can you tell us a little bit about Peacock? And we'll be reviewing that next.
Yeah, so Peacock had its UK premiere at Glasgow Film Festival as part of this year's country focus on Austrian cinema. It's a film by Bernhard Wenger, who writes and directs, and it's a kind of satirical European comedy in the kind of vein of Ruben Östlund and his kind of parodying aspects of modern life. So Peacock follows this guy Matthias, played by Albrecht Schuck, and he works for My Companion, which is a kind of trendy business startup that provides people who will pretend to be partners, children, friends for people for whatever reason. And as their best employee, Matthias is very good at pretending to be someone else. But he turns out to be so good that his girlfriend, Sophia, who's played by Julia Franz Richter, begins to see him slipping away into nothing. You know, he's just becoming a blank slate for his customers and for the people around him. So she confronts him with the accusation that he's no longer real. And the kind of tension of the film plays out from there. I don't want to say too much more about the plot from that point, but it's an interesting comedy with this kind of satirical bent.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, it's like you and I met briefly after watching the film, and I think it's clear that the Östlund comparisons are there. Especially there's some kind of performance art stuff in there, which people might think of the Square when they watch this film. I also think that there's comparisons to Yorgos Lanthimos a little bit in terms of how the dialogue plays out and the actions of the characters. Everything's got this kind of strange, absurdist tone to it. And in a way, it's about a guy who's losing his sense of self through his work, which is a topic that we'll discuss, I'm sure, later when we talk about On Falling. But this is done in a completely different way, a comedic way. I kind of thought it's kind of like Diet Lanthimos. It was like there, but it was a little weak. Like, I don't know if maybe week's a little harsh, but I don't know. I was expecting from the premise, I was expecting it to go a little further on some of its ideas. But I do think that it handled the humor very well. Like, there's moments of like awkward humor that are effective. I will say there's a part in it where he gets a little dog for his own companion, and stuff with the dog is great. There's like this little I don't know what the breed of dog, one of these little handbag style dogs called Aaron in the film, which even calling a little ankle biter Aaron, I don't know, it was just like tickled me a little bit watching it. But yeah, it was good fun, but nothing to write home about really. I don't know if you're being sat in it.
No, I agree. I felt the same way. I think it's fun enough, and there's some interesting ideas, but ultimately it just didn't have the same kind of bite as an Östlund film. It didn't have the same kind of satirical bite. It gets close to it in that scene you mentioned at the end, that kind of satirizes performance art and talks about performativity and how everything in Matthias's life is a performance, but it doesn't really resolve any of those questions enough, and like you say, it just feels a little weak. It's fun, it's funny, and it reminded me of another film. There's a Werner Herzog film called Family Romance LLC, which talks about a similar thing of renting people and people becoming other people for other people in Japan, I think. So it reminded me a lot of stuff. There's some interesting ideas being thrown around. At one point, it starts to develop some ideas perhaps around neurodivergence and autism and striking emotional connections between people and kind of masking that neurodivergent people have to do. But again, that's not really developed enough. There's also some ideas about smart homes and human connection. He's often talking to his car and not talking to the people around him. Again, not developed enough with enough kind of bite as you'd get in Ruben Östlund, I think. So yeah, I think you're on the money. It's fun enough, but ultimately a little forgettable and not one of the best films I saw at the festival.
I'll just say I think it's the debut of the director's promise of things to come, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And certainly, yeah, for me, from what you guys said, a kind of film I'd like to see anyway, because I love the Austin kind of films too. So
Yeah, I think it's worth seeing. Just don't expect to be blown away.
right. Well, that's okay. That's Peacock, and look out for it when it comes out, wherever it may. So next up, we will try Homegrown. And Robert, are you okay giving a little overview of what Homegrown is?
Yeah, I'll go over Homegrown. So Homegrown is the latest, I think it's the latest documentary by journalist Michael Premo, and it follows what we will call, in air quotes, true patriots. Follows every, they believe they're true patriots. Chris, Randy, and Thad, they are all members of the Proud Boys. If you don't know who the Proud Boys are, they are a very, very far right-leaning group in America, huge fans of Donald Trump. And this basically follows these three people in the lead up to the 2020 election and the aftermath as well, especially on the day of the insurrection, January 6th.
I thought it was interesting. It's an interesting insight into these men at kind of the rise of American neo-fascism, which we are seeing play out extended beyond January 6th now. It's an interesting film. It doesn't feel like it sympathizes with them, which I think is a good thing. It's to the film's credit. You know, Michael Premo is just watching these men and giving them enough rope to hang themselves, as it were, letting themselves talk themselves into looking like idiots and bigots and racists. They're quite different men in some ways. So Chris seems particularly violent and racist. Thad seems quite thoughtful at times. He has a kind of thoughtful perspective on white supremacy and racism. And he says he's not in love with Trump the man, but what he's done for the country, quote unquote. And Randy is, I thought, the least developed, and just he hates Antifa. He wants a civil war. He's so next to people using homophobic slurs. He's not really developed, but that's okay. He just seems like a bigot. So yeah, Michael Premo doesn't insert himself. He just watches these men and gives them enough rope to hang themselves, lets them talk, and just takes it in.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the film is a film of hypocrisies. It's a film where this is a joke, but this comes like how a lot of people said, like, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. That is Chris, because he lately says in the film, I can't be racist, my wife is Chinese.
Yeah.
But then he'll go and like do stuff that is very much racist. It's like there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's very racist. And like they'll constantly say this, and like Randy said something earlier, like that he gets called out for being a fascist, essentially, and believing in fascist ideas. And he goes, I'm not a fascist. My granddad fought against the Nazis. And it's like, they constantly say, like, things that I did this happen X, so therefore I can't be Y, but they clearly are. And it's really interesting. Thad is, I think, the most interesting one as a subject matter, because his one is a bit, like, you could view it as how, I don't say he's necessarily a good person, but I think how some people with good intentions can get sucked into the right wing zeitgeist because they feel a sense of community and they feel that, like, oh, these people accept me and accept how my views, and he gets swung into this because he wants to pair up with Black Lives Matter, which is something that the Proud Boys are very against. Like, that is against their whole mindset. And it does lead to, in the ending, which I won't get into, but it does lead to a moment where you're like, I think he did want to do good, but he got swept into the right-wing zeitgeist that we're seeing nowadays with especially young guys that believe everything Andrew Tate says is gospel, how they get swooped into these ideas and they believe that this is how I should speak because these people tell me to, and I feel camaraderie and I can relate to that. And it's the big thing about whether you like the movie is the intent of the director, Michael Premo's intent. Is he trying to sympathize with these people and go, oh, I'm trying to show the other side, or is he trying to show them as being kind of moronic idiots, essentially, like fascists and racists and bigots? I lean toward that he's trying to, like I said, show them being just hypocritical bigots. But I can definitely see people who might view it as the other side and not enjoyed the film as much. But I think it's a really, if you want to go in and hate what you're seeing, it's a great film to watch, because you will, if you despise what's happening at the moment, you will hate watching this. But I think that's on purpose, and I think it's really effective at doing that.
Yeah, I think I agree. I can totally see how you could read it as trying to present a sympathetic view of these guys, but I just think the way he films and the footage he decides to include and the kind of juxtapositions, the hypocrisies that he highlights, as you've said, really, really put forward his idea that these are not meant to sympathise with, that these are bigots who are, neo-fascists. I don't know about you, but I thought the film lost a bit of energy around January 6th, when it's just a lot of footage of January 6th and the insurrection on the Capitol, and it felt like footage I've seen before. It was all focused on Chris, because he was the only one, I think, who was actually there at the time, and he was on the front lines. And it seemed like it was just too much time on this single event, an important event, obviously, but it lost a bit of steam for me at that point.
I felt like that scene was amazing. I felt afterwards, because it starts to wrap up to the conclusion, and we follow Randy, and then something happens involving Randy that made no sense. It might came out of nowhere, and I had to rewind it back. So it's like, what is happening in this ending? And it just ends, and you go, okay, But yeah, I think that it is quite powerful at times, and quite haunting as well, especially because the ultimate hypocrisy is that if Chris got pardoned for what he did, you'll see what he did. You're like, you should be in jail for a long time. But the ultimate hypocrisy is that's afterwards is he's now free. He is a free man. He was pardoned by Donald Trump, the man who's for law and order, but will pardon people who assaulted and nearly, I think police officers did die. So
yeah, in some ways it feels unresolved because it is half a film. Like, it comes to a conclusion, but then obviously we know what happened after the election last year, and we have seen what is happening in America at the moment, and the kind of rise of the neo-fascism that Donald Trump is inaugurating. So it feels incomplete. It's almost a prologue to our current situation, and as such feels a little unresolved, which is a shame. But it's an interesting insight. It has some interesting ideas, and it's interesting to see these men portrayed unsympathetically as the racists and bigots that they are.
Okay, and it sounds like a tough watch for sure.
Yes.
And important as well. So that's Homegrown, and yes, check it out when you can. So the final film we'll be reviewing together as part of the Glasgow Film Festival is Stealing Pulp Fiction, which has resonance to some other film, I think. Do you want to explain what Stealing Pulp Fiction is all about?
Yep. So it's directed by Danny Turkovitz. I don't know, I might be butchering that pronunciation. But it's developed from his own short film about these two pals in LA called Jonathan and Steve, and they are big Quentin Tarantino fans, and they go to this special screening of Pulp Fiction on 35mm, and they kind of come up with the idea that they could steal Tarantino's print off the film. So it kind of like, that's the kernel of the idea, and it develops into this heist movie that is kind of dialogue-heavy heist movie that kind of uses all the Tarantino trademarks. So it's this kind of like love letter to Tarantino's films, I guess. So there's like scenes in diners, and there's like the briefcase trope. There's like everything that, even like the same kind of like 70s color palettes used that Tarantino likes a lot. So it is like this love letter to Pulp Fiction, but I think I would, instead of watching this film, I just recommend watching Pulp Fiction instead. It's fine, and I think it's like a good idea, but it runs out of steam, and I don't know if there's enough meat on the bone to develop the short into a feature. Like, I've not seen the short, but I imagine the short would work a bit better, because even this, I can't remember the running time, but I think it's under 90 minutes, and it doesn't quite have the staying power to be entertaining all the way through. yeah, I don't know what did you think of it, Simon?
I think I liked it more than you. I had a good time with it, and I was laughing pretty consistently for. It's only 80 minutes, and I was laughing pretty consistently for those 80 minutes. It feels quite small scale, so it is an adaptation of a short, and it does feel like an adaptation of a short. It does feel a little bit like a short stretched out to the 80-minute length, which I think you've alluded to there. But for me, it worked for that entire 80 minutes. I wasn't bored, and it seems to end at just the right point. So I had a good time with it. It was fun. There was clearly a kind of postmodern reverence for Quentin Tarantino, as you say. There's a kind of love of the cinema-going experience and going to see a midnight screening and getting a load of popcorn. And it made me laugh. I particularly laughed at Jason Alexander, that plays the therapist in the film. He has some very funny lines. He's very good in it. But I really appreciated the central dynamic between Jonathan and Steve as the characters. John Rudnitsky and Karen Sony are just really good. They have a fun kind of back and forth chemistry. They had fun, snappy dialogue together. So I just had a good time with it. You know, it made me laugh and was a fun homage to Tarantino.
I think like the fun, snappy dialogue. It was fun and snappy for a while for me, but then like maybe around the hour mark, I was like, I kind of lost momentum a little bit. But I do agree that I like seeing Jason Alexander popping up in things, and I did kind of think like this is it's kind of like a big name to like turn up in this little independent super micro budget short film, and I was interested to see the supporting actor in it, Cassie David, as Larry David's daughter, is in it. So it kind of like makes sense a little bit that maybe if Larry David's daughter is in it and they've got that Seinfeld connection, Jason Alexander kind of got in.
Yeah, you can imagine them getting a call to Larry to pull in Jason. Get Jason Alexander to read this.
But I do think that John Rudnitsky is charismatic. He's like a good lead. I think he's a SNL alumni guy. But yeah, I think like big Tarantino fans will get something out of it. But maybe just want to watch Tarantino films instead.
I realized I was on mute. Okay, so that's Stealing Pulp Fiction. Now I'm going to ask, Simon, you mentioned, the Surfer movie being your favorite, but were there any other films that really stood out for you? I'm going to ask everybody what they thought. I was really curious about the Oppenheimer film, and I saw that you saw that, and I was curious what you thought about it.
The Oppenheimer film?
Oh, sorry. Isn't it Joshua Oppenheimer? It was in the end.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of Cillian Murphy.
No, not the Barbenheimer from last year or the year before.
Yes.
But no, I'm talking about the new Joshua Oppenheimer film. I was curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I caught the end, which is the new film from Joshua Oppenheimer, who directed The Art of Killing, and it's not the natural progression, I think, to go from a documentary about the killings in Indonesia to a musical post-apocalyptic drama set in a bunker, comedy drama set in a bunker. But it's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a little long, it sags a little bit, and the music is quite forgettable in the same way as the music in Emilia Perez I found quite forgettable. But it's better than Emilia Perez, and it really worked for me. I think it does link with his previous work, because it is a musical in some ways about the unsaid, or the unsung, as the case may be. It's about emotional repression and denial in some ways, as these rich people shelter from the end of the world, and their kind of secrets and what they did to survive come to the surface through the course of the film. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a little long, but good performances, especially from Michael Shannon and Tilda Swinton. And George Mackay was at our screening. He did the Q&A afterwards and spoke about how he got involved with Oppenheimer and how he felt doing this kind of musical and where they filmed it, which was in actual salt mines that had been abandoned, and made it very easy to shoot because they could control the entire environment. They could light it exactly how they wanted. and it comes out as quite striking. So yeah, really enjoyed that. One of my favourite films of the festival.
Yeah, no, it seemed fascinating. And I actually, I didn't get to go, but a colleague of mine went to see them speak, Mackay and Oppenheimer, to speak at Berlinale about the film as part of the Berlinale Talents. But yeah, always an interesting take to see someone who's known for documentaries kind of go into this world. And I think that was a really nice point, not that having seen the film, but, with the previous films that he's done, that
Yeah.
comes through.
It seems like a pivot, but when you see the film, you can absolutely see a clear link between his previous work and this film.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that based on that mini review. Garry, did you have a couple favorites that we didn't get to talk about in this session?
Yes. It feels like I've been a little doom and gloom with the films I've spoke about so far that I've not really liked anything.
Bringing up the positives here.
Yeah. There was, I can't really review it because it's been like embargoed until it comes out on general release, but there was a film called Sharp Corner that I will say that it was one of my favorites of the festival, but I won't say any more than that. It stars Ben Foster, who's really good.
I was in the same screening and I didn't know it was embargoed, so I'll just say I also liked it a lot.
And then the other one, I mentioned it earlier, it was called Went Up the Hill, which I kind of had this moment of realization when I realized that the two main characters are called Jack and Jill, and then I kind of went, that's why it's called Went Up the Hill, sort of. And it's like a preposterous premise about an artist who dies, and at the funeral, there's her family around, and her girlfriend is there mourning, who's played by Vicky Creeks. And Stranger turns up, played by Dacre Montgomery, who people might know from Stranger Things. It turns out that he was the son of the woman that had died, and it's kind of like this two-hander that follows almost between him and Vicky Creeks, both grieving as women who they loved, and how her presence kind of takes over each of the characters to speak to the other one. So they're kind of both doing dual roles. I know it sounds mad talking about it, but like it works. It really won me over. I thought the performances were really good. Just kind of like haunting ghost story. I'd recommend seeing that. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I'm going to try and get a review out for that one in the coming week or so.
Great. Wonderful. And Robert, you were the least excited about this year's Glasgow Film Festival, but can you give us a recommendation that you...
Yeah, so apart from the two that I mentioned earlier, I think Boys Go to Jupiter is pretty interesting. It's an cute little animated film that's like commentary on like Uber, and it's really weird. It's hard to describe at times. It's like pretty bizarre. It's like really like, I don't say low quality because there's a lot of effort, but it's like really like low fidelity, but like then they use that to like do like really weird stuff, like limbs will just get randomly larger for no reason, and it's really interesting. And I like the documentary Mistress the Speller, which is a Chinese, or I think Chinese Canadian, I don't know if it's, I think it's a co-production sort of thing, where it follows in the film, it follows mainly the husband and the wife hires a mistress to spell her because she believes that her husband is cheating on her. And the idea with the mistress to spell is that she will do anything to get the couple back together and to end the affair. And it's a really interesting perspective on affairs because it, for one, in the opening it says, we did not recreate any of the footage. It's all we got consent throughout, and like there's some things that happen, and you're like, how did you get consent to film this? Like because it's like there's like things that like they like stuff that he'll say on camera, and you're like, there's a camera right there, mate. Why are you saying this? Like, why would you say this? And like, and I won't spoil it because I think it's worth watching. But then there's like certain moments where there's like, I don't know if it's quite halfway, but there's a certain switch that happens halfway, and you're like, how are you getting this footage without telling them what you're actually filming about? Because like I think it's clearly indicated they clearly didn't say why they're filming this to begin with, and it clearly because in the beginning it says as they learned more about the production they give full consent. So it's clearly like they did not. I don't know. I don't want to say that they lied to them, but like I don't know what they did to get in the situations. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, that does sound like a fascinating story about consent in terms of, like the journey that you take with the documentary and a documentary filmmaker and how they sometimes get you into doing things you didn't expect. But obviously in the end, they must have given consent. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much. And I really appreciate all of your feedback on, this year's festival and your reviews. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about another festival that's happening right now. It's the 15th year of Hip Fest. And so we'll be talking to Alison Strauss, who is the director of Hip Fest. I'm here with Alison Strauss, the founding director of Hip Fest, which is about to start its 10th season. Alison, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk to you about Hip Fest.
So I've heard about Hip Fest for many years, and I'm really into archive film. But tell us a little bit about why and how you founded it, and particularly in Bo'ness and the Bo'ness Hippodrome.
Yeah, I suppose you wouldn't choose necessarily to start a film festival in a town that's quite far away from the nearest public transport, but it's the perfect place for Hip Fest. When I started in the job as the programmer of the Hippodrome, it had recently been restored, reopened, and so it hadn't been operating as a cinema since the 1970s. And so I wanted to kind of put the cinema on the map, and the way to do that very much seemed to be through a film festival. And the idea of it being a silent film festival was born out of the fact that the Hippodrome is Scotland's oldest purpose-built cinema. It opened its doors for the first time in 1912. And so the concept marries the heritage of with the origins of the medium itself. So that it just seemed to make perfect sense. And it's just has grown from there. Started off quite small, a 3-day festival, Friday through to Sunday. And now we've grown and we have a 5-day festival, and we have outreach events and community touring and international touring. And also people travel from, not just nearby, but they come all the way from other parts of Scotland, the rest of the UK, and internationally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. From my first knowledge of the Hippodrome Silent Film Festival, I know that silent film has its own niche audience. So it's not just about Scottish people coming, but of course Scottish and local audiences are really important. But can you tell us a little bit about the kind of community around the silent films and the Silent Film Festival, and who tends to sort of travel to see these films?
So, yeah, you've hit it exactly on the head. I think for us, that idea of making a community of silent film, people who can want to watch and enjoy silent film with live music's really been a core part of what we're about. And I think, and also you mentioned niche, and again, we're very aware that it could be perceived as being niche, but our efforts all the way along have been to convey to people that actually this is a festival that can be for anybody. That anybody that likes film of any kind, whatever genre you like, we'll probably have it in our festival. And whatever music you like, we'll probably have that in the festival as well. It's all kinds of things are represented there. What you really notice is the people that come, and it's not just sort of silent film aficionados by any means. There are some, and there are some people who come related to their research or their work as archivists. But there's people who come with their families, with their children and with their grandparents and with their friends. And I think they're attracted probably for all sorts of reasons. But one of the things is that sense of community, because, we make a point, we have a red carpet and we have lots of glamour, but we don't have a kind of VIP area. Everybody's there on an equal footing, and you can meet the musicians, you can talk to people, the speakers, and the people who are there presenting and introducing stuff, or who are leading workshops. And then, because it's quite jam-packed and it's all in one space, or it's all quite close together in the town, people will inevitably mingle, and we've made more opportunities for people to do that. So we've got a quiz, for example, on the first day this year, so that if anybody comes to the festival on their own and they've never been before and they don't really know the lay of the land, there'll be this thing to take part in and put people into groups if they need that, and just some fun stuff. Yeah, it's very convivial, and I think people really like the atmosphere. All the feedback always talks about how welcoming it is, and we just encourage people to get involved. So in our Friday night gala, for example, we have encouraged people to dress up, and people seem to really grasp that opportunity with both hands. And we have a different theme each year tied in with the film. So this year it's Hitfest Glamour, that's always one. Or you can go for the tartan option, because we're showing a film that is set in Scotland, the west coast of Scotland. Yeah, I hope that answers your question a bit about who comes.
Absolutely. And the other thing I think about too is, it really draws a lot and very specific musicians as well. Can you talk about sort of the musicians you work with over the years?
Yeah. Well, when we had our very first edition, there was we had two musicians playing. One of them, Neil Brand, played for pretty much everything except the closing film. And Neil Brand he's quite a well-known broadcaster, musician, composer. People may have heard him on Radio 4's Add to Playlist, and he was also the presenter of The Sound of Cinema on the BBC. He's very, very articulate and accessible advocate for talking about music and film, and a really wonderful performer. And there's a few other musicians who've been on the circuit like him for decades, actually, and who perform internationally and who are so talented as well. Stephen Horn, John Sweeney, Mike Nolan, Frank Bocchius. We're lucky that a lot of the best silent film accompanists in the world actually are based in the UK or not far away. So we can, and also in Scotland, so we can get this great lineup. And so there are regulars, but we also have visiting musicians who have sometimes been commissioned for specific pieces. So sometimes from the rich folk vein that there is in Scotland. We've had quite a few folk musicians over the years. And this year, it's really exciting. We have some musicians coming from Sweden, Norway and Finland who will be there for our opening night. And on the Saturday night, a couple of great musicians, Tommy Pearman and Andrew Vasilik, who will be accompanying a new moving image archive piece, an artist's moving image piece. And we're very excited about that because that's going to be something quite different, folktronica. And they're a great duo, award-winning. One of them was one of the Scottish Album of the Year in that top 10. So, yeah, really exciting to have some fresh musical interpretation in the programme as well.
Great. And tell us about your program this year. What are the highlights of the program? I think this will be airing on Thursday, so it will be the day after your premiere. But yes, tell us a little bit about what you're really looking forward to sharing with your audience this year.
Well, as I said earlier, I think there's really something for everyone. So we've got drama, documentary, films from all different sorts of countries, different styles of films. On the Thursday, we've got very much an Irish theme going on. So we've got a film directed by John Ford, who's got a love of Ireland from his Irish roots, his Irish heritage. And then a really interesting programme in partnership with the Irish Film Institute, including a pioneering woman. In fact, that's one of the things we do, is try and shine a light on women who've maybe been overlooked in film history. So this is a filmmaker called Flora Kerrigan, whose work has recently been restored in Ireland. And it's very playful, very experimental, very fun and fresh. So that's really exciting, with an introduction from the Irish Film Institute. And then on from that, we've got a lovely concept of a programme, which is it's called The Nearshore, and it programs amateur film and actuality footage filmed by Scottish people when they're visiting Ireland, or Irish people with their perspective of Scottish interest. But there's some really delightful films like footage of Butlins, for example. And I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know, highlights really tricky. One of the things that I'm most excited about is actually our closing night film, which is probably quite obscure. In fact, it's not really, I suspect most people won't have come across it or had a chance to see it anyway. It's called Forgotten Faces, and I discovered it at a film festival last year, and it's just gradually coming out into the love that it should, the audience love. I think audiences are going to really enjoy it. It's one of those cracking films where as soon as the credits roll, as soon as it opens, you're thrown directly into the story, and you learn really quickly and eloquently about the lead characters, and you're gripped by the drama of a very wonderful gentleman jewel thief who's got very dapper, and he's a wonderful family man. He loves his baby daughter very much, but his wife is a terrible harridan, and he's cheating on him. I don't want to give away too much, but that all happens in the first 3 minutes, and then it just explodes into this fantastically gripping drama, and it's lots of fun along the way.
So you mentioned discovering some of these films. You must go, and I'm curious about your curation and how you find these films. I mean, uncover films and sort of think about each year's program, and how this particular year sort of stands out to you, because it is your 15th anniversary, so you've been doing this for quite a long time.
Well, I do get to go to see silent film. The best place for me to see silent film is at a wonderful festival in Italy called Le Giornate del Cinema Muto, and I'm really lucky that I go there. That's films screened over 8 days from 9 a.m. till midnight every day, and that's a great place to watch films. But this day and age, so much is available digitized. Most of the world's archives are happy to share screener links with curators and researchers, and you can do a lot like that. But yeah, I think in terms of how it's sort of knitted together, obviously the silent cinema, i.e. that period when film was made without synchronized sound, covers a lot of ground. To 40 years of film production from all over the world, so it's a very broad canvas to distill down into 20 films or 20 events. And so there are sort of themes and sort of patterns that I would suppose broadly applies. And there are some things that probably people would lynch me if I didn't include, for example, a Laurel and Hardy double bill, because there are some classics like that. So yeah, I just try and go for something to give people a flow through the day. So for example, that Irish themed day on Thursday, or if you're starting with a comedy on the Saturday morning with Buster Keaton, you might edge them into a comedy starring Reginald Denny, who's a fantastic physical comedian, but maybe not so well known, and then nudge them on from there to a pacey German, and just follow the sort of tone of people. And also it's very much determined by our wonderful cultural partners. So hence we have a great partnership with the Confucius Institute at the University of Edinburgh, and so that's been our avenue into really exploring Chinese silent film, which is very rarely get the chance to see these films. And the one we're showing this year is The Cave of the Spider Woman. And anybody who grew up like me watching Tales of the Water Margin or Monkey on television in the 70s and 80s will remember those characters, Monk Tripitaka and Monkey Pigsy. Anyway, those characters are from an ancient Chinese text, and they were no surprise. This was inspiration for filmmakers at 100 years ago. And so it's really great to have that support from cultural funders cultural institutes that allow us to really explore films that are rarely screened.
You spoke very well about that the location, the cinema. The cinema is just absolutely stunning and glamorous. And when I first moved to Scotland, I actually was at the film house and they were telling me 3 film venues I needed to see in the world, and one of them was the Hippodrome. So I did. I went like my first the first time I came to visit Scotland. I came over to see a film, and it is a really stunning place. But how does the film festival sort of sit within the overall Hippodrome sort of program? And also I was just curious because you were mentioning sort of taking the festival out into, you know, into touring and whatnot. So what's the plans of that this year?
Well, so I'm glad you love the Hippodrome. Everybody who comes can't fail but to love it. It's got, I don't know, one of the things about it, it has this round auditorium, and people describe it a bit like a hug, and it is like that. And the wooden paneling around it, which is made from the reclaimed wood from the ship breaking that happened in the Firth of Forth nearby, gives the sound quality it's an amazing sound quality of the music. And I will answer your question in a minute, but just to say that one of the things you can always tell when someone's coming to the cinema for the first time, because they walk in and then they walk right in and see the domed ceiling, which is painted this stunning midnight blue, and it's got gold leaf stars in it and this fantastic contemporary chandelier, and people always look up and say wow, and it takes people by surprise. So yes, how it sits with the program I program the Hippodrome year round, which is, I'm so lucky, and we do show silent film in the autumn, and we have a mini season then, which is like, we call it Taste of Silence, and it's maybe more familiar titles then, sort of an entry point for people to explore. But the program, we're a single screen cinema, which does bring its challenges to, for programming, but it's a very broad program with something for everyone. So let me think what we're showing. I think we're showing Bridget Jones at the moment. It's doing a storm, packed houses. We'll be showing The Big Lebowski and Doctor Strangelove, the MT Live stuff we show, and The Last Showgirl. There's something for everybody. And in terms of touring, we've tried successfully for the last number of years to take at least one new commission from the program and tour it. So in fact, there's something that still is ongoing. So last year we screened this beautiful film called The Rugged Island by a woman filmmaker, Jenny Gilbertson. You know this one? Yeah. And she filmed it in Shetland, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful film. One of those films that sort of fell into being made at the cusp of the transition to the sound era, and so in fact the sound version became more widely known, but my heart is very much with the silent version, not just because of what I do for a job, but because it's got more subtlety, I think, and it has more of a sort of authentic Shetland voice to it through the intertitles. Anyway, and that was we commissioned 2 musicians, Inga Thompson and Katrina MacDonald, to create the new score for this film. And it's had a few outings, and we're currently working on ways to get it, have encores of that in other places, of course, especially Shetland. This year, we don't know. I think the Saturday night film, the new commission, which is a departure for us, the artist moving image film inspired by the canals and waterways that are so crucial to Scotland and Falkirk and our partner festival in Birmingham, Flatpack. That's going to premiere at Hipfest and then be presented again in Birmingham at their festival. So, but we've got quite a backlog catalogue of great commissions that can pop up. So if anyone wants to review, we've got a page on our website of touring stuff.
Amazing. You described the beginnings and why you sort of came up with the idea of a silent film festival in Bo'ness, but why are you passionate about this kind of work, and why does it keep you going? And after 15 years, what do you think you've learned a lot about how important it is to share archive and silent film?
What a lovely question. I think I feel one of the most wonderful things about doing this is the chance it gives me to work with musicians, because I just love the magic that they do when they sit there. Because you asked about how I curate the film, so I'm often watching films on a little screen on my laptop in my room at home with no sound or with quite sort of arbitrary music over the top of it. And honestly, that front row seat on how the musicians just do, transmogrification of it and just to make the film live is just such a privilege, really, to be part of. And I think because I love film, but I came to this job via work in arts development, which is ultimately about a belief that art is for everybody, and that, that an interest. I'm quite passionate about getting rid of as much as possible of the barriers that there might be for people to, finding art that they enjoy and want to see and want to be part of. And film is a great medium for that because lots of people already feel enfranchised to watch film. But, this is just, again, this is another fantastic privilege that I feel I have, is that, winning people's trust in the audience and then earning on that trust by, bringing them along with me on the taking a chance. And so it is quite a slog, honestly, because a lot of work goes into just 5 days of a festival. But when it starts and it's underway and the cinema's full of people who are really on the edge of their seat or moved, laughing, gripped in some way by the film that you've brought together with that musician for them, that is such a thrill. And I suppose as well, just it feels like a little triumph, because people, the idea that when things are old, especially in contemporary cinema exhibition, when a film is out for more, there's a lot of drive to get an audience for a film in the first week of release or second week of release, and then people consider it can be that the films can be sort of dismissed once they're relegated to television, or they're old if they're more than 8 weeks old. And just it's really wonderful again and again for that to be proven wrong, that a film from any part of the world made 100 years ago or more can be newly discovered and newly appreciated. Necessarily, it can be appreciated in a way that wasn't originally conceived that it would be. The way that people can find value and beauty in that is really great.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We've done live music concerts with stuff before with Cinetopia, and also pop-up events, and the venue matters. So given that you have such a gorgeous home and such a wonderful community around you locally, but also just this community who comes to the festival, it's such a stunning, exciting thing for Scotland to have, and looking forward to going again. And is there anything else you want to make sure you mention about this year's this weekend, which when people listen to this
Thank you so much again for inviting me. But I realised that I haven't at all mentioned some of the stuff that we do online. So we have a whole HitFest at Home programme. Probably the easiest thing is for people to check it out on our website. It's all very clear there, but that's a mixture of podcast and free presentations with fantastic speakers, illustrated and again with clips and live music. But also we are recording and making available on demand 4 of the programs in our program this year. There's details about the viewing windows for each of those, which are just 48 hours in each case, and also the booking windows. Neil Brand is going to be one of those recorded events talking about the art of silent film accompaniment. Opening gala will have happened by the time this goes out, but will be available to book still on Thursday, and that's with fantastic Sami musicians. And then the Irish programme that I mentioned will also be available, and the Friday night gala. So people can be at home, mix their Mary Pickford cocktail in their own comfort of their living room, put on their tartan or their HitFest 20s glamour, and join us virtually for the Pride of the Clan.
Great option, but also they should. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's a great option as well, but also highly recommend people go in person if they can. But yes, Alison, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, that's our show. A lot of festivals, a lot of films happening. And also don't forget to come out to Kim's video if you're in Glasgow on the 10th of April or anywhere. We're on in Dundee as well and Cromarty. So if you're listening to this anywhere in the UK and Scotland, Kim's video is on your way to a cinema near you. And we have an exciting film coming up for Doc as well around Earth Day called The White House Effect, which is very fascinating. But there's just so much going on film wise and stuff coming out, left and right. Anything that you're all recommending that you've seen or you want to see that we should tell our audience?
I've got one actually that ties in quite nicely with the Glasgow Film Festival because it's just been announced that a film that I think we all liked last year at the festival called Tummy Monster is going on a UK tour. Yes. And I think it's going to be on the GFT in May, and all the information's on the website. So Google Tummy Monster and all the screenings come up. So that would be my shout out for Scottish independent cinema.
Great. Yeah, I remember that. We all reviewed that last year, and I saw them talking about the new UK tour, so I'm excited for them.
Yeah, that's a great shout. That was my highlight of the festival last year, so I'll be excited to see it again.
Yeah, the only one that comes to mind is you can edit this part out. This comes out before after tomorrow, right?
This comes out on Thursday.
Okay, I saw the new film by the Train to Busan director, Revelations. It comes out on Netflix on Friday. It's amazing. Go see it. It's incredible. My favorite film of the year so far.
Wow. High praise. And Simon?
Yeah, it's been a busy few weeks for festival stuff, so I might just veg out and looking forward to the new Final Destination, which I think will be silly fun. Yeah, just watching people get killed in silly and interesting ways.
Yeah, no, I always feel like after a whole festival run, it's time to veg out, as you said.
Exactly.
Take in some of that. No, that's wonderful. Thank you all for joining and this month, and hope to talk to you all coming in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.